A local quasi-governmental agency with the most unwieldy name wants to tackle a big, hairy, audacious project. In that same neighborhood, a robotic welding startup using AI and founded by multiple SpaceX alumni has raised a record-breaking multi-million-dollar seed round of funding. And what? Is Cincinnati not good enough for a JW Marriott? This is Above the Fold.
Whether you're rediscovering your hometown or planning your next getaway, Cincy offers unforgettable experiences at a price that's hard to beat. Catch a game, explore world-class museums, enjoy miles of parks and trails, experience live music, or dive into one of the Midwest's most exciting food scenes. Learn more or plan your trip at visitcincy.com.
Welcome to Above the Fold, a podcast by the Cincinnati Business Courier, presented by Cincinnati Regional Tourism, where we bring you the week's top stories and interviews with newsmakers that take you behind the people and the personalities in the news. I'm your host, Andy Brownfield, joined by co-host and Courier editor-in-chief, Tom Demeropoulos. Welcome, Tom.
Hi, Andy. Good to be here.
Above the Fold. It's like all the news that's fit to print, only it's not trademarked. It means the biggest stories of the day, the top headlines that appear on the printed page, and it's a legally safe name to use for our podcast, which we still probably should have cleared with corporate before launching 3 years ago. But it's also a mission statement for this podcast, to bring you the biggest news of the week and an interview with a newsmaker that takes you deeper than the day's headlines. This week, we have Tony Lamb, who grew a business selling something in each of our kitchens, ice, into the world's largest mobile food business and one of the region's largest private companies. But first up, Tom, just what is the difference between a Marriott and a JW Marriott? And pretend like, well, there's no pretending. Know that I'm someone who almost exclusively stays either at Airbnbs or really crappy roadside motels.
Well, Andy, so I can't think of a time I've ever stayed at a JW Marriott, but so a Marriott is kind of the initial, the original flagship brand of Marriott, and JW would be an even higher end, kind of more luxurious version of a Marriott hotel.
So Marriott is the flag that is going to be the headquarters hotel for our convention center. It's $500 million hotel, and they did a ceremonial groundbreaking on July 21st. I say ceremonial because keen listeners to our first podcast will know that Steve Leeper said that they had secured funding and work was already ongoing on building that hotel. So during this ceremonial groundbreaking, our Chris Wedrick asked, why not a JW Marriott?
Yeah, and Andy, I think the answer that we got was interesting to hear, in that the idea from the developer, and really this wasn't just the developer that picked this flag, it was a combination of kind of the entire team working on this district. They said that the Marriott was the right brand to go with as opposed to a JW Marriott.
So a JW Marriott would cost about 15 to 20% more, and the price tag on this hotel is already $540 million. So that'd be a pretty big bump in price tag.
It would be, and for what this hotel needs to be as the headquarters convention hotel, I can see their point in not trying to make it kind of the most luxurious hotel on the market. We've got some really good high-end hotels that kind of fit that need if you are looking for something more along the lines of the Lytle Park Hotel or the 21C. Like, we have those offerings. So to me, it makes sense that they went with the Marriott brand for the headquarters hotel.
But it's hard not to feel just a little bit salty when Portman Holdings, the developer of this hotel, their CEO said, and I guess he's a straight shooter, when you start breaking up the brands underneath the flag, you want to pick the product which will actually work with the market and the location and what we are trying to do. JW Marriott is a more luxurious, a different kind of product, and to us, that doesn't fit this market profile.
Yeah, and especially if you look west over to Indianapolis, where they have a 1,000-room JW Marriott near their convention center. Indy's a very big convention city. Like, they draw a lot of big conventions to that market. I think much larger than what Cincinnati can draw based on its convention center. And they've got the domed stadium for their football team, so that helps as well. So I don't know if it's the best comparison to make, but you feel a little sting.
Well, Marriott's got more than 30 brands in its portfolio, and both the developer and Marriott said that the standard Marriott flag has a stronger track record, specifically with convention centers, than JW has. And there's a whole bunch of behind-the-scenes stuff that I wasn't aware of. I mean, Marriott is going to be going out and selling the hotel to potential conventioneers, so they are, going to be rowing in the same direction as the convention center and as our convention and visitors bureau. Our mayor framed it as part of a bigger vision, saying the city is stitching these projects together to create a cohesive, thriving district, and that they're not done growing.
Good to hear.
So, Tom, some neighborhoods receive millions or even hundreds of millions in private investment to take them from, say, Walnut Hills circa 2013 when I lived there to the Walnut Hills of today. But there's another way to do that, no?
Yes.
I lived in Camp Washington around 2017, right before Tony Ferrari opened Mom and M on Coleraine Avenue. And I used to joke that it was Northside, but 15 years behind. I mean, Northside is a super artsy DIY neighborhood that had very ground up ethos for its own development prior to institutional capital coming in. And institutional capital has come in to Northside. But Camp Washington was kind of seen, at least when I lived there, as like a bastion for artistic people, for makers, doers, DIYers, people who really wanted to build the neighborhood up themselves. It wasn't getting a lot of institutional capital. It wasn't getting a lot of developers coming in. And that is going to change. One of the most, I think, iconic buildings in that neighborhood, and I'd say in Cincinnati, is the Samuel Hanford designed Crosley building where they used to make old Crosley radios.
Yeah, Andy, that's the building. If you come down I-75, you can see it on your right-hand side if you're traveling south. Just this giant building with the cool parapet at the top of it. It really looms large over that neighborhood because it's such a big building and so tall for that neighborhood, and as we've determined, it's a key part of getting redevelopment going in that area.
And fun fact, friends of mine who played in a band may or may not have, for plausible deniability's sake, shot promo photos in that building. So that building has seen 2 failed attempts at private developers trying to rehab it and turn it into a mix of residential and probably retail. And why's that been?
A lot of reasons, Andy. So it's a tough building. It's a big, hulking might be the right word for that building. So it's one of those buildings that it's going to need a complex capital stack to make it make sense financially for a private developer to do it. So they would need help from historic tax credits, and they would need help from other sources of funding, which can be difficult. And in one case, the state passed a new law where you can't stack low-income housing tax credits with historic tax credits. So that kind of killed one of the plans to get that going.
So the Port of Greater Cincinnati Development Authority, my favorite governmental entity name, is assuming the role of master developer and kind of flipping that idea on its head of redeveloping the Crosley. Instead, they're going to redevelop the area around the Crosley to the tune of about $200 million and kind of hope that more redevelopment follows, or that it makes it easier for a private developer to take the Crosley itself and turn that into something.
Yeah, Andy, I think this is a pretty innovative take on making things go there. And, Chris's story on this really made me realize how much is in that block already that they can build off of. You've got the sign museum, you've got an existing apartment building. So it's this idea of really starting to piece that neighborhood together around it and have like a whole block, as opposed to we're just focused on this one building. It's a much more comprehensive vision.
So that vision involves a 300-unit mixed-use residential building, which will have commercial space of its own, 25,000 square foot speculative industrial arts building for small operators, and 27,000 square foot public plaza with desperately needed green space. I mean, Camp Washington historically has been a very industrial neighborhood, and I think I've seen reports over the years of the coolest neighborhoods in terms of temperature to be when there's a heat wave because they have the most tree cover, and Camp Washington is typically towards the bottom of that list. So Tony Ferrari, I mentioned his Mom and M. He's been there for nearly a decade now, and he said that there's been so much talk of development happening, but there's not really been a lot of action. He told Chris that he doesn't really like the idea of big corporations coming in. He wanted to be more people working with their hands, a lot of old school DIY, like I said. But fast forward, he thinks that we might need a little bit more of that institutional help. It was, MSA Design, the architecture firm, they looked at similar areas of the country, and one example that they pointed to was Denver's River North Arts District. It's also a former arts and industrial district north of downtown that now has a boutique hotel in an old 1880s iron foundry. It's got a major food hall, music venue, murals, while also being true to the industrial roots of the neighborhood and being home to several small specialty manufacturers. So I think that's kind of the vision that MSA and the port has for Camp Washington.
Yeah, Andy, it's really a cool idea of the rejuvenation they want to bring to that neighborhood. It's so funny you mentioned that because Camp Washington has been it's been on that list of like the next neighborhood for a long time, and I wonder if this plan isn't the thing that takes it off of that list and puts it on the list of communities that have done it.
So we're going to stick with Camp Washington for this next story. The neighborhood, like we said, has always had an industrial vibe. Down the street from the house that I rented was the Machine Flats, named for the fact that it was a former machine shop. So even the port is planning on some sort of light manufacturing component to the redevelopment around the Crosley, and fitting right into that, 3 SpaceX alumni have chosen the neighborhood for this latest venture, and it involves robots.
Yes, Andy, I love when we get to talk about robots here on the podcast.
You know what? I think the Jetsons sold us a fake future. I thought jetpacks would be much more involved in my day-to-day life as an adult in the 2020s than they have ended up being.
Yeah, Andy, I was also a lot more concerned about quicksand. I don't know if you remember, quicksand was a very big thing to be worried about as a kid. Like every cartoon, there was always a quicksand episode.
Yeah, I thought I'd have to use my jetpack to get out of the quicksand. So 1872 AI is a brand new robotic welding company, and it just opened in Camp Washington. It's founded by Dan Summers, a former SpaceX engineer who worked on the Raptor engine, which powers the Starship spacecraft at SpaceX. Tell me if this shocks you. He said that he met with Elon Musk frequently at SpaceX, and he thought that the work environment there was a bit chaotic.
That sounds about right.
1872 AI. It's raised a $15 million seed round, and that's pretty remarkable. They claim it's the largest seed round in Ohio. I, off the top of my head, can't fact check that. But I remember when I was covering startups in Cincinnati a decade ago, that would have been considered a pretty large Series A round.
Not just a seed round, but a later round of fundraising. Yeah, definitely very impressive to see that kind of investment coming here to Ohio and to the Cincinnati region.
So the company's got 4 robots, each about 15 feet tall. Our Corey Schauffeld, he shot photos of this, so go online if you're interested and check out the story. It's really pretty remarkable. They plan to grow to about 20 to 30 robots in a single year, and a single robot can weld apart anything that's made with steel in roughly 2 hours. Now, it's not meant to replace human welders, but kind of augment them. The welding industry is facing a pretty serious labor crunch. For every 5 welders who leave the field, only 2 enter. And 1872 is kind of trying to solve that problem.
Yeah, Andy, those numbers are kind of a little scary when you talk about that level of skilled labor going away. And again, that's why we're coming up with a solution like this that's going to help augment that.
Yeah, and they're targeting like 25 to 30 million in annual revenue, and that's just from their current factory. But they think that by the middle of next year, they could be opening a second location. Tom, how do you do with needles?
I'm okay with needles. I am one where I prefer getting a shot is easy. Having blood drawn, as long as I don't have to watch, I'm okay. I don't mind a blood draw, but I would prefer not to watch them take the liquid out of my body.
I think exposure therapy helps. Whenever I get blood work done, I force myself to watch it. Because if I see it and I know it can't hurt me, then that makes it less scary, I guess. Good news for needle averse, Evendale-based Enable Injections got a huge win with the FDA recently when its CirClick device was approved for a multiple myeloma cancer drug. So the CirClick, it's based on the N-Fuse from Enable Injections. It's a pretty remarkable thing. It's like it's a little puck, and it lives on the skin, and it can inject drugs subcutaneously without the need for shots. And multiple myeloma, it's a blood cancer. It's a bone marrow cancer. And it is currently treated with either an infusion where you have to have the IV in your body and then sit there for hours while it gives you the drugs, or multiple injections into your midsection. And this will run around that. You don't need to have needles in you. Instead, the Circlic will sit in your skin and pump the drugs into you.
Yeah, Andy, I don't know about you, but I think this idea of not having to sit for hours with an IV infusion or have a manual shot given is it's a game changer. This is a delivery system that can really help with delivering lots of different medications that people need.
So just to give a little bit of context, enable injections is a pretty big deal in and of itself. It's a unicorn, which means that it's valued at $1 billion or more. And its CEO, Mike Hooven, says that this is one of the biggest things to happen to the company since its founding. Now, multiple myeloma is one of oncology's biggest markets, which, sidebar, part of me feels a little icky with cancer treatment being treated as a market. But Johnson & Johnson's competing drug, so this has been approved for use with Sanofi, am I pronouncing that correctly? With their multiple myeloma drug, but Johnson & Johnson's competitor pulled in more than $14 billion in sales last year alone.
This is an opportunity, really, Andy, for I think what Mike Hooven kind of called explosive growth for this product.
Yeah, Enable is bringing online a 90,000 square foot manufacturing center in Springdale, which is going to cost them a whopping $120 million to construct, and it's going to start full manufacturing in 2028. So to pivot, Tom, just how much is too much to spend on the ability to have a man cave where you can park your car?
Whatever you're comfortable spending is what you should spend.
That's a very diplomatic answer from the editor-in-chief of a business publication whose audience can probably afford these. So the Torque Motor Suites, a luxury private garage brand by Nair Properties, is opening its second location. The first, as you're well familiar with, is in Oakley, and this one will be in Blue Ash. So the Blue Ash facility, it's got 30 private garage suites, and guess how much they start at?
What's the price tag here, Andy?
I say guess how much they start at as if you're not like reading the news story that we've all edited. But yeah, they start at $399,900, which is more than a lot of people pay for a house.
Yes, it is a significant cost, but if you look at kind of what Torque Motor Suites provides, Andy, these are cool. I'm not a car person. I'll put that out there. So I don't pine after automobiles. I don't look at Corvettes or old Mustangs and go, ooh, I would really like to drive. It just doesn't appeal to me. But if you are that type of person, man, it would be nice to park those cars in one of these spaces.
Yeah, so these aren't your average storage units. And anyone who's had to use a storage unit, if they've had to move or just offload some things that they don't have space for in their house, this isn't that. These have 18-foot ceilings, climate control, LED lighting, a bathroom. Some even have a shower. They are 1,200 to 1,600 square feet, with some having an additional 400 square feet on a mezzanine level. I mean, you really could make a complete man cave out of these. Some of them have patios where you can grill.
Oh yeah, I could totally see, you could have your bourbon there and a cigar, or put in a beer keg and go work on restoring your car. I don't know if anyone needs this type of garage to restore my first car, which was a 1989 Dodge Aries K car. But, can't imagine many of those cars are in these garages.
No, like I said, Nair's only got 2 Torque locations in Ohio, but they are expanding nationally. They're targeting Chicago, Indianapolis, Nashville, and Birmingham. And I got to say, I've got a man cave in the new house we moved into in last year, and it is game-changing to have kind of a space where I can let my nerd flag fly. I've got 3 different Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle posters on the wall there, but as somebody who's expecting his first child there, I think that's soon, well, maybe eventually going to be usurped. So who knows? By then, maybe I'll have $400,000 I can drop on a garage.
There you go, Andy.
So today on the podcast, we have Tony Lamb, CEO of Kona Ice. You might think Kona Ice is a food truck, but it's actually a technology company. how else does a Northern Kentucky-based firm manage more than 2,000 vehicles on the road? We interviewed Tony just after the 4th of July, which he likened to their Super Bowl. Tony talked with us about the origins of Kona Ice, how he grew it into the largest mobile food business in the world, and what's coming next for the company that has branched out beyond just shaved ice. This is Tony Lamb on Above the Fold.
With family-friendly attractions, vibrant neighborhoods, there's something new around every corner. The Cincy is the perfect place to spend a day, a weekend, or longer. Learn more or plan your trip at visitcincy.com.
Short waist. Man, what a great view.
It is. It's fantastic, especially now that they just got money to start capping Fort Washington Way.
That's when I just read that.
Yeah.
Where did I read that? Yeah, you know. I get like 6 emails a day from you guys.
Either thanks or I'm sorry.
Well, so is this the busy season for you guys at Kona Ice now?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. July 4th was the epitome of that. That's the single weekend. But the month of May is our biggest month by far, as a month goes, because right now it kind of starts dying down just a little bit. As far as organized events, you got to understand. So that's where we thrive, is organized. You can't have enough Kona trucks on July 4th because there's so much requests. So it's fantastic for that. So, but then the month of May is, you got teacher appreciation, the first part. You got healthcare workers appreciation. So the nurses appreciation, and then you've got schools letting out. So you're in all those end of the school year festivities. So it's as much as you can go. So
how do you prep for something like that? I mean, it's got to be like, for us in journalism, election night is like our Super Bowl, because you got to have people out in force, just monitoring everything. I have to imagine it's kind of like your Super Bowl.
It really is. So I hate to say this, but I was away on July 4th, but my local ops. So we just, our corporate office is in Florence. There's about 150 people that work there, but probably 40 of them they swell to 40 during the summer, is our local operation. So there's 5 Kona trucks, there's 4 Traveling Tom's coffee trucks, and there's a Beverly Ann's warm cookies and ice cream truck. So that is just booked. I start getting texts from the guy running it, who happens to be my youngest son. And I'm very excited about that because he's 25. He always worked in local ops, but he never managed. Then eventually he managed. And it is, you're getting ready to find out how wonderful children can be. But no, he has taken the ball and just taken off running. So I get this text in the morning where he's grilling, like, I've got a picture, 40 hot dogs for his team. And he's out there, and they've got fireworks, and everyone's got on the patriotic stuff. And here come the drivers in. Trucks are all stocked and beautiful. And man, the drivers just start going out. And we have this software that has all the event coordination, directions, route optimization, everything. So it just starts putting people in the right places. But then at the end of the night, they're back there by midnight, and there's a big, massive group picture where they're all looking a little tired, but some of the young girls have got their the flag painted on their face. They've all got super patriotic things on. So it was a good day.
So you are, correct me if I'm wrong, the largest mobile food vendor in the world?
Yes. It's like king of the nerds. But I am. They did. We have investors or whatever, and they came back and said, there's nobody as big as you. And I'm like, I thought they were talking about my weight, but they were talking about they're talking about just mobile vending. And we've been, we have 2,200 Kona trucks on the road. We have closing on 400 Tom's trucks. So if you break it into brands, I'm actually number 1 and number 2.
Oh, wow.
So, the next closest is not even broke 100. I think Annie Ann's might have 30 or something, 30 or 40. I don't know what the other people that are doing it, but we just do mobile really well. I think a lot of people do mobile though, and they think it's the stairs or the steps to brick and mortar.
Mm-hmm.
If you read articles, and I don't know, Courier articles, people will talk all the time and they'll say, hey, such and such food truck has now got a brick and mortar. And they feel like that's the pinnacle or the next step up. And I just don't do that. We lean into mobile, be very good at it, optimize it, make it a super efficient, and just live there in that space and not try to. I've got one brick and mortar Kona Ice place in Baltimore, Maryland,
Hmm.
But she bought out a 75-year-old, they call them snowballs in Maryland. She bought a 75-year-old snowball stand out on this street corner. And she asked us if she could brand it Kona, and we charge her just $1,000 a year, whatever. I don't think she pays. Matter of fact, I need to check in on that. Does Joni pay for that? I love her. She's a 20-year police officer, retired, and she does great. She does great there, but no one else for the most part. We stay mobile. We bloom where you're planted kind of thing, and that's what we try to focus on.
So walk me through, I mean, what was the germ of the idea? How did you decide that, shaved ice was going to be the thing that you start with? And then how did that grow into something that it doesn't seem like anyone else is really making a serious go at attempting to dethrone you?
So that could be either a compliment or it could be an insult. No one's coming after you. Wonder why.
Well, I mean, you continually top not only our list of largest private companies, but also fastest growing. I mean,
Yeah.
many years you're just a constant entrant on those lists.
Yeah.
So you're doing something right.
Yeah, I mean, we're very blessed. I always say when people ask me, what's the secret sauce? I'm like, hard work, but it's luck. A lot of it's luck. Right place, right time, right idea, work hard. There's so many cliches about, hard work meeting opportunity, and it's right timing, right luck. But
But the product must also taste pretty good.
it does. It does. But it's a very simple product. We try to get it as great as we have the best flavoring, the fluffiest ice, these kind of things. But at the end of the day, it's not you say snow cone and people, I remember growing up with snow cone and tears of the roof of your mouth and you're biting the bottom of that paper cup so the flavor will leak into your mouth.
Yeah.
And that's not that's not what we sell. We sell, I mean, it's a cup of fresh snow that you can douse with flavors, and you can create your own concoction. The flavor wave is really the thing. But let me answer your first question, which was, how did it start? I had a buddy who had a Mr. Softy ice cream truck. I was working for him in another capacity, and I was succeeding. And he said, "Hey, how would you do this truck? Or, how would you do this business?" And I was like, I looked at it and I thought, well, first thing, I wouldn't do ice cream. It's just you're dealing with so much on that truck. The truck was very expensive. It was very elaborate. The back third of it was generator. So you needed a mechanic. You needed a server, and so you had too many employees almost for this. And I said I would try to get it much more simple. At the same time, a young lady that I used to work with for a long time, when I changed jobs, I sold this company off. She got into business in Warsaw, Kentucky. And I happened to be down there one day and someone came in. I said, it was a video store. And I said, well, move this to food as quick as you can. And I was down there real quick. Someone walks in and says, I'll take a shaved ice. She makes a shaved ice, hands it to her. And they walk out. She goes, I love that, selling that. She said, because it was truly profitable. She said, a milkshake, I got $1, 40 or 50, and I sell for $3. That I have, 25 cents, I sell for $3. And I was like, bah, that sounds good. So, but it was not even about the cost, the economics. It was about the simplicity of it. And then what can you do with it? Again, in the evolution of this process, I remember bringing the truck in to my partner, who's a great guy, and he has 2 kids, and they're really funny kids. They were young; they're men now. But I said, guys, let me ask you a question. What if a truck would pull up and you could put your own flavors on it? And they looked at each other, twins. They looked at each other and said, "Oh, we'd kill you." And I thought, oh, I like that. I like that the kids think value. And so that we kill you. And I said, okay. So we put the spigots on the side of the truck. I got a federal patent on the flavor wave is what we call it. So you hand a customer this fresh cup of snow, supposed to be fluffy and with crevices, and then they take it to the flavor wave and create their own concoction. And that has just stuck, and it took off. Now, a lot of the other things that have made this business so wonderful, and I think has created a tremendous moat around my business, is fixed royalty. My royalty is almost insultingly low. It's $3,000 a year. And I have franchisees making strong 6 figures, and they're paying a $3,000 royalty. I regret that sometimes. I don't regret it, kind of. But no, I also danced with what brought me to the dance, and that was a good business model. You know, Andy, when I thought about this, I thought it's an all cash business. You know, this is back in 2007. I'm not going to track people down and say, how much flavoring did you buy and how much, and you owe me this and you owe me that. So I just was using my trucks. Here's what I think a royalty should be. I put it on an FDD and out the door I went. And I've just maintained that because the business, like you said, I'm fastest growing year over year over year over year. And I've got franchisees that have changed their lives. You know, they come in, they get a little business, and most of them have never been in business before. And which sounds really cool at first, until those things kind of come under subject matter. Until but you got to take them through the whole journey. You know, the licensing, the compliance, and all the things that they deal with, and then they're not used to being in business sometimes, so they struggle with following rules even of a franchise. So you've got to keep everything brand consistent, and it's tough. It's that old expression, herding cats. Yeah, it's true sometimes. 2,200 franchises out there, and they're all over. We're in all 50 states now. We just someone just came in North Dakota. We were in Alaska before we were in North Dakota. And it's like, that's crazy. We're selling ice. I said at one time we were selling ice to Eskimos, but I don't think you're allowed to say Eskimos anymore. So indigenous, I think, is the proper term. I'm learning as I go. I'm just a, West Virginia hillbilly that moved to Kentucky because he thought it was classier. So
Well, you say it's simple, but it sounds like you've got it kind of down to a T, and like you're talking about having the technology to map out optimal routes. I mean, that sounds like something more akin to Amazon.com instead of a mobile ice truck.
Yeah, I mean, that's evolution of the business, and where that kind of started from was, my franchisees were using just a spider web or a network of off the shelf software. They would use Google Calendar, and they would use When I Work, do the scheduling. They would use some route optimizer or whatever. And then COVID hit, and we came in and looked at it. We had just started kind of playing with software. I just never liked software because it's a black hole of money that never seems to get filled. And I'm proving that right on a daily basis. But we started that. COVID hit. We bought some software. We had it kind of re-skinned, so to speak, called Curbside Kona. And my franchisees that used Curbside Kona during COVID flourished because they would get on Facebook pages and say, hey, Kona's going to be in your neighborhood. Send us real quick if you'd like us to stop. All the things come flooding in. Everyone's quarantining in their home. These requests come flooding in. You run it through a route optimizer, and then you text back or you email back or Facebook back or whatever and say, I'll be in front of your house at 2:12. And then I'll be in front of your house, the neighbor's house at 2:18. And you just have these 6-minute stops, and you go, and people were just, I mean, you remember, it's hard to remember how terrible those times were and how secluded you were and quarantined in your house. It seems so apocalyptic now, really, when you think about that. But it was
something like Kona Ice felt like such a treat, such a, a break from, because, this is different. I get to go outside and
a touch of normalcy in an otherwise terrible moment. And they just did crazy good, but it made us realize, hey, there's a lot of things we're missing here. But trying to get a homogeneous software for all franchisees to use was also the big thing. So they could really organize themselves. They could scale so much easier. As they add new trucks, because we have about 800 franchisees and 2,200 trucks, but we also have another 1,000 we call ancillary pieces of equipment. So these are little tiny trucks that go into a public pool, or we have a kiosk that goes into a water park or something like that. So we have about 1,000. So there's over 3,000 points of sale just in Kona, and about 800 franchisees. So you can see almost every franchisee has multiple sale points. So they got a staff scheduler, and that's all built in. And then the really cool part, because our team is incredible, because we kept trying to buy and hire teams and do all this stuff. So I just ended up hiring an architect, a software architect, bringing it in, setting him in a room with one of our franchisees a guy that had a lot of franchisee experience, and they just started crafting and building the software. And we use, some coders or whatever out of, not in the office, but the software just gets better and better and better. It's so good now. I think it's probably, of all the things that have come out of Kona or Tom's or Beverly Ann's, it's probably the thing I'm most proud of because, like you said, it's so different. I mean, nobody is even close to this.
And that software, is that something that you would ever consider licensing out to other operators, or is it just something that's more valuable to keep in-house?
I am I'm a capitalist, so I would never say no to somebody that, but no one's really at a scale. We have a franchisee that is involved with a very large pizza company that has some mobile aspects to it. And that company has inquired about white spacing our software. And there's no desire for me at that point because one, it's I think 30 trucks. So I don't know if you let the genie out of the bottle or whatever for 30 trucks, so to speak. And I know we've had conversations with a lot of big major brands that always inquire about going mobile. Some of the biggest, and I don't know if I'm at liberty to say their names. It sounds like ick filet. Um, phenomenal company. Why am I on a professional podcast? They're going to put a lot of trucks on the road, but they're doing it in a totally different way. And we were being extremely helpful for them. They came to campus. They came to our campus. Our campus is, 1,000 square feet or 100,000 square feet of office space there. They bring a team in and going through the whole place, and they found themselves at truck support. Now, this is nuanced, whatever, but we have about 6 or 7 guys that help every franchisee in the country. Equipment goes down, this happens, that happens. They go through this process, and truck supports takes care of them. And this company said, we already have 5 people in truck support, and we have 17 trucks. How are you doing 2,200 with the same? I said, well, let me show it to you. And he was like, why are you showing me all this? And I'm like, I think you getting into the space validates the space. I think it's building of the space. When you say I'm the largest mobile and I say king of the nerds or king of the dorks, and that's just my internal joke, these are good. Everyone in food truck are good, hardworking Americans or whatever that are doing an amazing job, but very, very, very few scale. Very few abide by a lot of the regulations and even the things. There's so many unregulated, unlicensed. I'm supposed to be on a podcast, I think in a couple weeks. It's a trade podcast, but it's talking about, will I make a comment on all the unlicensed food trucks in Washington, D.C.? I would say well over 50% of the trucks are not licensed, and I'm well over 50% are not licensed in Washington, D.C. They're just run amok. And so it's that's the part you get. And I made some comment on some stage or whatever. And I said, if you really want legitimacy, if you want laws written for you, if you got to come in and organize, and you got to come in and you be part of society, and be part of the community, and not stay on the fringes out here and just run wild and run amok. There's the reason there's regulation and compliance and health codes and things like that is important for societal safety. It really is. And so you want that. It's the wild, wild west in food trucks. And I would love to see it get to a place where it's very accepted. I think I read this thing, one of my, Matt Fultz is our commercial strategist at Kona. And he wrote this, just a descriptor. And he said, Kona Ice, and I don't know if you know this, we are under an umbrella called Roll Brands. We just this is internal. So we're starting to flesh this out a little bit, where Kona, Tom's, Beverly Ann's, we've got 2 concepts that we're working on that are coming. We're going to put it underneath this umbrella called Roll Brands. And Roll Brands will be the QSR, which is quick serve restaurant, the QSR for the community. So we go to the places, we go to the high school football games, we go to the track and field meets. We go wherever people are, the festivals, the things, and we're the QSR there. We're licensed, we're health code inspected. I mean, we're safe. And we provide a great product at a very reasonable cost and provide a great experience. But no one else is really doing that. Everyone's trying to make a, more elaborate lobster roll or whatever. I look at lobster or Cousins lobster roll trucks, and they amaze me. But they do really, really well. But their food costs are insane, and the amount of it's just so elaborate.
Yeah.
It'd be hard to scale that business to size.
Well, as we wrap up here, I got a couple of rapid fire questions for you.
All right, I'm ready.
Best part about, I know you got a house in Florida, but best part about living in this region?
This is, this is the crown jewel. You've got Major League Baseball, you've got football, you've got an opera house that's like on par with anything I've seen in New York. And then you've got community, you've got walking trails. I'm not fluffing this up. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else in the world. I really wouldn't. I'm from West Virginia. I went to University of Kentucky. I moved up here. I used to say Florence is an overgrown traffic stop. And I've fallen in love, 4 kids, all educated in Northern Kentucky. But then, I can go to a Bengals game. I can go to a Reds game. I can go see a show without sitting in traffic for 2.5 hours trying to get anywhere. And you're seeing top quality stuff. And then the environment, the entrepreneur environment, I get to sit on some of these boards or whatever in these, I don't know what you would call them, but I just get to rub shoulders with a lot of amazing people that are doing great things in Cincinnati. So I don't know if this is a sales pitch for Cincinnati, but I just think there's nothing like it I've ever seen. And I've traveled quite a bit. I love New York and I love California and San Diego. But man, just the traffic alone. Now, let me say this. From January 15th to about April 1st, I would like to live somewhere else. I'm not going to lie. Those gray overcast skies for about 3 months, a little hard on the psyche. But man, other than that, I think it's just paradise.
And what's the one thing in Cincinnati that any visitor needs to see?
Oh, you just want to say something so proprietary. Like you got to come in and eat Grater's ice cream at an original Grater's. You got to go to Skyline. All my franchisees come in and are like, what's this Skyline chili? I'm like, they're everywhere, brother. Gold Star. You got to do something that's authentic Cincinnati. And we always push people to do that. We have our RBU, which is Roll Brands University. So we just had one a couple of weeks ago. 50 people came into town. So we have city barbecue for lunches. We try to give authentic experiences from Cincinnati. We want the franchisees or the prospects, I guess they're franchisees at that point. We take them to a Reds game. We're all going to, I got a big group going to a Reds game this Saturday in the Handlebar. And it's just going to be for the whole staff. How do you do that? This is a great place.
Well, Tony, thanks for being here.
Oh, you're welcome. Hey, look, can I talk a little bit about the future?
Absolutely. Please.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just, no, I was thinking about this for the podcast, but when we talk about being QSR for the community, we want to have our next offering is going to be a savory truck. So we're coming in with pretzels and all kinds of gourmet dip. That's going to have a nice, warm, flaky pretzel. Oh, crusty pretzel. It's fantastic, by the way. And then these just gourmet dips that are coming out. So we're working on that. I get to sit in meetings where they work on the creative. So here's what the brand looks like. And you're like, this is fantastic. And then they're like, so then the product developer come in for a tasting. I think there's a tasting tomorrow. Here's some more of the gourmet dips that we're working on. Like, this is the best. And Kona was, me and me and me sitting there, trying different flavoring, going through different shavers. I think I have 20 different shavers. We ended up building our own shaver. So we have this phenomenal machine that pumps out this fluffy ice. But that journey of just, a couple people evolving to R&D department and a products department. And then we have engineers that'll build the trucks, put the ovens in and do all these things. Now you're like, this is something that I think then we can roll out. I'd love to get into services and come in. I'm actually trying to figure out how to get into the dog grooming. I'm not watching anybody do that really, really well. There's some fabulous people out there, one-offs but there's a lot of non-fabulous people, one-offs. And I want Roll Brands to have 10 different offerings, and people can come in and say, I think in my space, the Beverly Ann's, Tom's is named after, I don't know if you know this, Tom's is named after my father. And because he's always that cup of coffee. He's a energy provider for people. He is politically incorrect, and he's an HR disaster because he's 90. But you kind of give him a pass on that. My daughter always says somebody needs a software update, and then but is so engaging. And so people always say, people say, I feel better about me when I'm around your dad. And I'm like, that's got to be the ultimate compliment. And so you name the coffee truck after him, and then the energy. And then Beverly Ann's was named after my mom, and because she made the best chocolate chip cookie in the history of the world, for that matter. So, and that business has got really good legs. That's my weakness, because I'm not so much a shaved ice eater, and I'm not really a coffee drinker, but man, I could eat my own weight in cookies. So anyway, and then, trying to get, my wife is like, why do I not have a truck named after me? And I was like, but her name doesn't have the alliteration with pretzels. It's Susie. So it was going to be Susie's Smoothies, but our smoothies have ended up on our Kona trucks. The Kona trucks have expanded. I've got about almost 500 Kona trucks now with smoothies on it. So that's exploding for us, by the way, but couldn't do it. So I'm trying to figure out I got to start something with an S.
Spaghetti.
There
you go.
Susie's spaghetti truck. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll be around to write about it.
Yes, you will. And you'll email me a couple times a day
Absolutely.
to do that.
Yeah. We'll let you know.
In all seriousness, I appreciate the emails, brother.
Oh, good.
It keeps me informed.
Yeah, that's what we're here for.
This has been great, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Above the Fold is a podcast by the Cincinnati Business Courier, presented by Cincinnati Regional Tourism. The podcast is produced by Neil Slimick and hosted by me, Andy Brownfield, and Tom Demeropoulos. Our theme music was written and performed by Dylan McCartney. Come back next week for another episode of Above the Fold.